The first punch landed so hard that everyone on the street froze. A fruit stand collapsed into the road, oranges rolled across the pavement, and an elderly shop owner fell to his knees as two police officers ripped cash from his register while pretending to conduct an inspection. Mothers pulled their children back. Workers lowered their heads and kept walking. No one dared to intervene. No one except one woman stepping out of a black SUV at the end of the block. She wore no fear on her face, only fury. And before anyone realized what was happening, Congresswoman Elena Ramirez walked straight into the chaos and stood between corrupt officers and a trembling businessman whose entire life was being destroyed in front of him. Before we continue, if you believe kindness still matters, if you believe people deserve second chances, and if you believe power should protect the weak, not exploit them, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that restore faith in humanity. The city of San Verano looked beautiful from afar. Tourists loved its glowing skyline, crowded food markets, and historic neighborhoods filled with family-owned businesses that had survived generations. But beneath the city's bright image was a dark reality few outsiders knew. Small business owners lived in constant fear of a corrupt police task force that operated like a criminal organization hiding behind badges. Every month, officers visited immigrant-owned restaurants, barber shops, laundromats, flower stores, and tiny grocery markets. They demanded compliance fees to overlook fake violations. If owners refused, mysterious fines appeared. Businesses were shut down for absurd reasons. Inventory disappeared during inspections. Some owners were arrested on fabricated charges. Most stayed silent because speaking up meant losing everything. Miguel Alvarez was one of those hard-working business owners. At 58 years old, Miguel had spent 30 years building Alvarez Family Market, a tiny corner grocery store passed down from his father. The shop wasn't glamorous. The floors creaked, the refrigerator hummed too loudly, the paint outside peeled every summer. But to Miguel, it was sacred. It paid for his daughter Sophia's education. It fed local families who couldn't afford expensive supermarkets. It represented his late wife Isabella's dream of creating something meaningful. Since Isabella died from cancer 5 years earlier, Miguel poured every ounce of his grief into keeping the store alive. He woke before sunrise, stocked shelves himself, and delivered groceries to elderly customers after closing time. The neighborhood loved him because he treated everyone like family. But Officer Raymond Briggs saw Miguel differently. Briggs led a small unit of officers feared throughout San Verano. Tall, cruel, and politically connected, he had spent years extorting vulnerable business owners. Miguel had resisted paying him for months. Every time Briggs demanded cash, Miguel politely refused. That refusal made Miguel a target. One rainy Tuesday morning, Briggs arrived with 4 officers and claimed Miguel was selling expired products. Customers were forced outside. Shelves were overturned. Registers were searched. Cash vanished. When Miguel protested, Briggs shoved him against a display stand so violently that jars shattered around him. Miguel's daughter Sophia rushed in after receiving a frantic call from a neighbor. She screamed as she saw her father bleeding from his forehead, while officers handcuffed him in front of cameras conveniently tipped off by someone in the department. The news reported Miguel as a criminal business owner under investigation. Sales disappeared overnight. Customers stopped coming. Bills piled up. Miguel was eventually released, but his reputation was destroyed. Within weeks, foreclosure notices arrived. Sophia watched her father become a shell of himself. The once cheerful man who gave free groceries to struggling families now sat silently in darkness every night staring at old photos of Isabella. He blamed himself for failing his family legacy. Then came the night everything nearly ended. Sophia returned home from work and found Miguel sitting in the empty store with a bottle of pills in one hand and foreclosure papers in the other. His eyes were filled with unbearable defeat. He whispered that he couldn't fight anymore. That was the moment Sophia refused to let corruption win. She recorded a heartbreaking video from inside the nearly empty store. Through tears, she showed broken shelves, legal bills, and her exhausted father sleeping in a chair after days without rest. She explained how corrupt police had destroyed honest businesses while city leaders ignored it. The video barely received attention at first. Then, one unexpected viewer changed everything. Congresswoman Elena Ramirez was preparing for a major political fundraiser when her assistant showed her Sophia's video. Elena couldn't stop watching. She saw Miguel sleeping in his chair. She saw the trembling fear in Sophia's voice, and she saw her own father. Years earlier, Elena's parents had run a small restaurant. Corrupt officials had once threatened her family too. She never forgot watching her father cry after being falsely fined when she was a child. That pain shaped her entire career, and now history was repeating itself. Elena canceled her fundraiser immediately. The next morning, she visited Alvarez Family Market without cameras or media. Miguel looked embarrassed when she entered his nearly empty store. He apologized for the mess, unaware his story was about to ignite a national movement. Elena spent hours listening, not speaking, not making promises, just listening. Miguel showed her missing financial records. Other business owners began arriving after hearing she was there. A bakery owner described being beaten. A widow explained how officers stole her life savings. A mechanic revealed he had secretly recorded police extortion. By sunset, Elena understood the scale of the corruption. This wasn't misconduct. It was organized abuse, and powerful people were protecting it. When Elena publicly demanded an investigation, city officials attacked her immediately. News outlets loyal to corrupt politicians called her reckless. Anonymous threats flooded her office. Donors withdrew support. Her own party warned her to back down. Then her younger brother Daniel was assaulted outside his apartment. The message was clear: stop digging. Elena sat beside Daniel's hospital bed, consumed by guilt. Her mother begged her to walk away before someone died. For the first time in years, Elena felt fear stronger than courage. That night, she drove alone to Miguel's store. She found him cleaning graffiti from the windows. Someone had spray-painted the words, "Stay silent." Miguel looked at Elena's exhausted face and noticed her shaking hands. And instead of asking her to keep fighting, he told her she had already done enough. "Ooh," he said, "good people shouldn't lose their families trying to save strangers." Those words shattered Elena, because Miguel, despite losing nearly everything, still cared more about others than himself. That night, Elena made a decision. She would finish this fight no matter the cost. She organized a massive town hall meeting. Thousands arrived. Business owners stepped forward one by one. Some cried, some trembled, some hid their identities. But they spoke, and hidden among the crowd were federal investigators secretly documenting every testimony. Then came the moment no one expected. Officer Briggs stormed into the event with armed officers. The crowd panicked. Children screamed. Phones began recording. Briggs walked directly toward Elena and demanded she shut down what he called an illegal assembly. When she refused, he moved aggressively toward her. That's when Sophia stepped in, then Miguel, then dozens of business owners formed a human wall around Elena. And suddenly, the entire crowd stood together, hundreds of ordinary citizens facing armed corruption with nothing but courage. Federal agents moved in seconds later. Briggs was arrested publicly. Then more arrests followed. City officials, police commanders, business inspectors, judges connected to bribery schemes. The corruption network collapsed like a house of cards. Months later, Alvarez Family Market reopened with lines stretching around the block. People traveled across states to support Miguel. Donations poured in, but Miguel used much of the money to create grants for struggling small business owners. Elena helped pass new federal protections for family-owned businesses facing government abuse. And Sophia launched a nonprofit that provided legal aid to immigrant entrepreneurs. But the most emotional moment came one quiet evening. Miguel stood inside his fully restored store after closing time. He looked at a framed photograph of Isabella hanging near the register. Tears filled his eyes as he whispered that he kept his promise. Their dream survived, and so did he. Before we reach the ending, if this story touched your heart even a little, please like this video, share it with someone who believes justice still matters, and subscribe for more stories that inspire hope. Your support helps these stories reach more people. And right now, comment below. If you saw corruption hurting innocent people, would you have the courage to stand up? 1 year later, Elena received a handwritten letter with no return address. Inside was a simple note from a young girl. She wrote that her parents had almost lost their restaurant because of corruption, but Elena's courage inspired them to fight back. Their restaurant survived, and now her little brother could afford medical treatment. At the bottom of the letter were words that made Elena cry. "You didn't just save businesses, you saved families." Elena folded the letter against her chest as tears streamed down her face. Because in a world where power often protects itself, one fearless act of courage had reminded an entire nation that justice still belongs to those brave enough to fight for it. And sometimes, all it takes to change the world is one person refusing to look away. 1 year after Officer Raymond Briggs was led away in handcuffs and San Verano celebrated what many called the fall of corruption, people believed the nightmare was over. They were wrong. On a warm Sunday morning, Miguel Alvarez stood outside Alvarez Family Market smiling as children ran between booths during the neighborhood's first annual Small Business Festival. Music filled the streets. Families laughed. Local vendors handed out free food. For the first time in years, the neighborhood felt safe. Miguel looked up at the sky and whispered a quiet thank you to his late wife, Isabella. Their store was thriving again. Sophia's nonprofit had expanded into 3 states. Congresswoman Elena Ramirez had become a national symbol of justice. Finally seemed peaceful. Then gunshots shattered the celebration. Screams erupted. People dropped to the ground. Parents grabbed their children. Miguel froze as bullets tore through nearby decorations and shattered store windows. Where? Windows. A masked gunman fired wildly before speeding away in a black SUV. When the chaos ended, several people were injured. One of them was Sophia. Miguel rushed toward his daughter and dropped to his knees as he saw blood spreading across her shirt. Her breathing was weak. Her eyes fluttered as terrified paramedics surrounded her. Miguel screamed for help while holding her hand. He had already buried his wife. He could not lose his daughter, too. Miguel sat outside surgery, trembling uncontrollably while Elena arrived with tears in her eyes. Federal investigators quickly discovered the shooting wasn't random. A surviving member of Briggs' corruption network had hired criminals to silence Sophia because her nonprofit was helping expose financial records tied to powerful politicians and wealthy businessmen who had never been arrested. Briggs may have fallen, but the men above him were still free. And now they were striking back. Sophia survived surgery but remained in critical condition. Doctors warned Miguel that the next 48 hours would determine whether she lived. Miguel sat beside her hospital bed every second. He read her childhood letters. He played her favorite songs. He begged her not to leave him alone in this world. Meanwhile, Elena launched the biggest investigation of her career. She discovered millions of dollars had been hidden through fake charities, offshore accounts, and construction companies. The corruption ring was far larger than anyone imagined. Judges, senators, media executives, and billionaires were connected. Elena was warned repeatedly to stop. She ignored every warning. Then, her house exploded. Thankfully, Elena wasn't home, but her mother was. The blast destroyed most of the house and left her mother trapped under debris with severe injuries. Elena arrived to find firefighters pulling her unconscious mother from the flames. That moment nearly broke her. She stood outside the burning remains of her childhood home, screaming in grief and rage. Reporters surrounded her. Cameras captured her tears. And in front of the entire country, Elena made a promise. She vowed she would destroy every person behind the attacks, even if it cost her career or her life. Public support exploded. Millions demanded justice. Whistleblowers began coming forward. One former accountant secretly contacted Sophia's nonprofit and revealed shocking evidence before disappearing days later. He left behind a flash drive containing everything: names, payments, bribes, murder cover-ups, election fraud. The evidence pointed to one man no one expected. Governor Richard Holloway, a beloved public figure admired nationwide. He had secretly built his empire through fear, bribery, and violence, and he ordered every attack. When federal authorities moved to arrest him, Holloway disappeared. The nation watched a historic manhunt unfold. Meanwhile, Sophia finally opened her eyes after days in a coma. Miguel broke down sobbing as she weakly squeezed his hand. Her first words made nurses cry. She asked if everyone from the festival was safe. Even after nearly dying, she was worried about others. Weeks later, authorities located Holloway at a private airfield preparing to flee the country. But He wasn't surrendering quietly. He took hostages, including a young airport employee. News helicopters broadcast the terrifying standoff live. Elena rushed to the scene despite federal warning. Miguel and Sophia watched from home in horror. Holloway demanded immunity. He threatened to kill everyone. As negotiations failed, the terrified hostage, a young single mother, collapsed in tears. Then something unexpected happened. Elena stepped forward unarmed. Federal agents begged her to stop. But she kept walking. She looked Holloway directly in the eyes and reminded him of every innocent person hurt because of his greed. She spoke about children losing parents, families losing homes, communities living in fear. And for one brief moment, Holloway hesitated. The hostage escaped. Snipers immediately took the shot. The nightmare finally ended. Months later, trials exposed decades of corruption. Hundreds were convicted. New laws protected whistleblowers and small business owners nationwide. Elena declined offers to run for higher office. Instead, she returned to local communities where change mattered most. Miguel expanded Alvarez Family Market into multiple community grocery stores in underserved neighborhoods. Sophia married the doctor who helped save her life and continued leading her nonprofit. And Elena's mother recovered slowly enough to attend one unforgettable event. A new street was renamed in honor of ordinary small business owners who stood against corruption. During the ceremony, Miguel gave Elena a small framed photograph of Isabella. He explained that his wife always believed angels walk among ordinary people. He told Elena she proved that was true. Elena couldn't hold back her tears. Before this story ends, if it moved your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who still believes courage can change the world, and subscribe for more emotional stories of hope and justice. And comment below, what would you risk to protect your family? Years later, an elderly Elena walked through San Verano unnoticed. The once broken neighborhoods were alive again. Children played safely. Family businesses thrived. People smiled freely. She passed Alvarez Family Market and noticed a little girl helping her grandfather stack fruit. The girl looked up and recognized her from old photographs hanging inside the store. She ran out and hugged Elena tightly. Then she whispered words Elena would never forget. My grandpa says heroes don't wear capes. They just refuse to be afraid. Elena looked around at the lives rebuilt from unimaginable pain. And in that beautiful moment, she realized true power was never about titles. It was about standing up when everyone else sits down. And because she refused to surrender, an entire generation grew up free.